Dealing with someone who exhibits passive aggressive behavior at work can be quite a challenge because sometimes these folks can disguise their true feelings, making it pretty difficult to address any issues head on. But with a little bit of understanding and strategic communication, you can navigate these tricky waters. I'm Dave Edwards. Here is how to handle passive aggressive workers without losing your cool. Well, today we will consider passive aggressive workers. There really are a whole lot of other challenging types of people you might be working with. I probably don't need to tell you that. I have ideas for dealing with them in my online course, Managing Difficult People. I'll tell you more about that later. Imagine you're in Robert's shoes. His coworker Jesse always agrees in meetings, but then never follows through. And when things start falling apart, she points the finger at him. Or think about Susan, who nods along with all the ideas, but then subtly undermines them later on. These folks might even offer backhanded compliments or display negative body language while insisting that, oh, everything is fine. Gabriel Adams, an expert in workplace conflict, explains that passive aggression stems from a reluctance to express true thoughts directly. It's often fueled by fear of failure, rejection, conflict, or simply feeling powerless. This behavior becomes a way to vent frustrations without confronting issues openly. And you can, of course, see why that is a problem in the workplace. So, here are some traits of the passive aggressive person that you can keep looking out for. First of all, self serving. They seek a lot of approval and focus on how they are perceived rather than the task at hand. Follower aversion. They avoid teamwork unless it benefits them. The political players, they use office politics to advance their own agenda. The overly concerned worker, they worry about issues that are simply out of their control. Job dissatisfaction. These folks dislike their work, but they're basically too insecure to leave. Misery loves company workers. They seek out and recruit others in the organization who share their grievances. And those folks who are just simply resistant to new ideas. They feel threatened by change or innovation. So if you work with a passive aggressive person or manage one, here are some things you can do. First of all, most important, talk to them. But when you do, avoid labels. Calling someone passive aggressive really will not help. It's a loaded term that can make the person pretty defensive. So instead, you might want to try to understand their perspective without making a judgment. You want to focus on the message. When faced with passive aggressive comments, look beyond the snark. What's the underlying concern that they have? Maybe Jesse's subtle digs are really what about feeling left out in the decision making process. So you want to address the core issue if you can, rather than the way it's presented. Create a safe space. Encourage honest dialogue. Social psychologist Heidi Grant suggests framing the conversation to show you're open to hearing their perspective. Say things like, I heard you say, and then whatever it is. Did I get that right? That can invite clarity and even reduce some of the defensiveness. Use specific phrases. Some useful ones include, I heard you say, but I wasn't sure if you meant something else. Is there something that I'm not understanding? You could say, I noticed that you pushed away from the table or rolled your eyes. What's your reaction to the discussion? You could say, I noticed that you haven't responded to my email. Is everything okay? According to the Mayo Clinic, passive aggression involves expressing negative feelings indirectly. It's a way to deal with anger or frustration without addressing them head on. For example, an employee might claim they never received crucial instructions. A boss might set you up for failure by withholding necessary resources. A colleague might drop the ball on a project, making you miss a deadline. A customer might even agree to terms face to face, but then go over your head to complain. If you are a manager and you have to deal with a passive aggressive person, you want to keep the line of communications open. You want to lead by example. You want to handle tough conversations directly and transparently. Now, for chronically passive aggressive, you might want to consider pairing them with someone who's more direct. You could offer professional training to improve their communication skills. You might even be able to provide coaching sessions focused on addressing their behavior. If a passive aggressive person is a coworker, well, if you suspect they're sabotaging projects, you want to address that right away and directly. Confront them face to face, but be prepared that they might retaliate. You want to document interactions and gather evidence to protect yourself if necessary. So far, we've talked about people we manage or people we work with who are passive aggressive, but what if that person happens to be your boss? A passive aggressive boss can be really tricky. They'll often blame their failures on the people who work for them. Not a good thing. Focus on your work. Build alliances with other managers who can vouch for your contributions, and if necessary, prepare to defend your work to higher management or to HR. Dealing with passive aggressive behavior requires, as you can see, patience, understanding, and strategic communications. By focusing on the underlying concerns that these people have and creating a safe environment for dialogue and leading by example, you can effectively manage and mitigate the impact of a passive aggressive person in the workplace. Do you want to learn more about other types of challenging people in the workplace? After a whole lot of research, I created an online course called Managing Difficult People. It will give you the edge when dealing with people who are difficult to get along with or manage. It's even been updated to include a section on managing these kinds of people who work remotely. It's a course that runs about 90 minutes, and you will have well-researched advice on preparing you for the next conflict you face with someone at work. You can find out more about managing difficult people at daveedwardsmedia.com. Just click on courses. Do you recognize this person? What about this guy? Or her? Do they remind you of someone that you work with? Not everyone is easy to work with or manage. I've researched the best techniques for managing the most difficult workers and compared notes with top human resource specialists. I put it all into my online course, How to Manage Difficult People, and I've added a complete section on how to manage remote workers. Find out more at daveedwardsmedia.com and click on courses.